Welcome, 16-bit hockey fans, to yet another edition of the NHL 94 podcast. Today, I'm with somebody that's been involved in the community for a number of years. In fact, we could throw in the word decades and plural at that, because he's been in this for quite some time. Scribe 99, or in this case, he just Scribe. I don't know how to call you. Scribe 99. What should I call you?
Either one's cool with me, but Scribe's just fine. Yeah.
All right, we'll go with Scribe. You know what? Just curious. Your name, like, what's the history behind Scribe?
So it was the name of a company that made rollerblade parts, honestly, and I was into that when I was a teenager with some friends. And so there was this company in Minneapolis that made grind plates and T-shirts and stuff. And I bought some of the stuff. I just liked the sound of it. And then I think when I was first getting online, like with AOL back in the day, picking out your first username, that's what I went with, and it's kind of stuck since then.
Are you a rollerblader?
Not anymore. I mean, I used to be back in the day, like I said, but I haven't put them on for I don't know how long.
And funny thing is, we're just started in this family to start to learn how to rollerblade. I can't skate. I'm Italian, so we don't do winter stuff. So I finally, put the money down, bought some rollerblades, and I'm starting to learn it. And I'm not very good. I'm late 40s, and somebody learning how to rollerblade for the first time. It's not an easy endeavor to go down, but I'm learning. So it's a lot of fun, though. I have to say, it's a lot of fun. But it's not Scribe brand name, unfortunately. For that.
Well, I don't even know if that company exists anymore. Probably not. So all they have left is me at this point.
Scribe, I want to know a little bit about your history, about how it is that you got into 94. Everybody has an interesting story, unique at that. I want to hear yours, because I just want to tell the world what it is. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So we had an SNES growing up. I think, honestly, I just saw like one of the NHL games playing in like, I don't know, Funkoland or something, thought it looked cool. My first game was, I believe, NHL PA 93 on the SNES before one-timers. Just played the hell out of that by myself. And then my cousin, who was about my age, had a Genesis. He picked up NHL 94. So that's how I got into playing NHL 94 on the Genesis. Played a ton of that, loved that game. And then I had my best friend, he picked up the NHL 94 and SNES. So also played a lot of that just on the console, on the TV, and just got addicted to really both versions of the game. I always kind of felt like I preferred the Genesis one better, and I just didn't have a Genesis growing up, so I didn't play that. And then with online, so I guess we're fast forwarding a bunch of years, but when Xbox Live came out, the same cousin and I, who we played a lot of Genesis 94 on, we got into the 2K football series. You could play it online. We started creating leagues. The leagues got really big. We had a really competitive league. And then that all folded when Madden bought out the rights. So that was like probably right around that 2005 time period. So I pretty much lost my online game of choice, and probably just was looking around on the internet, came across NHL 94, and I think I played a little Tecmo Bowl online at the time too. I was into that game, and so I think that was right about the time that people started to actually play leagues in 94 online, and so that basically just became the game that I played.
I want to go back to the days in which you started, and so you had an SNES growing up. Did you play any other games? I'm curious if you dipped into any other genres, maybe Final Fantasies or.
We played. Yeah, my first console was like, and Nintendo NES. NES. So like, played all the big games like Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, Castlevania was my first game. Loved that game. And got into a little bit of the RPGs with like Dragon Warrior. I think came free with like a Nintendo Power subscription. So I was like one of the first subscribers to that magazine or whatever. So did a little bit of that. My brother, my younger brother, is a little more into like RPGs and things like that than I am. I kind of always gravitated towards sports games. So like had played, like I said, Tecmo Super Bowl, that kind of stuff. So I was always more of a sports gamer, I would say. And then, past that, it would be, played a little Halo and some first person shooters, but mostly that kind of genre for me.
Did you ever finish Castlevania?
Yeah, so
Good
not
for
when I was a
you.
kid. I could never beat that game. You could, get so far and keep continuing, but then you'd get to, I think, Dracula at the end, and it was just impossible. So never beat the game. But then one day I was in my 20s, and we took out the NES and we're messing around with the old games, and I just decided that I was going to beat this game. It was like unresolved. First game, had never beat it, and so I just sat down all day and played the game, got back in the groove of it, and finally actually did beat that game, but not
Good for
for
you.
however long that was, decades later.
Good for you. And going fast forwarding a little bit, you were playing the 2K series in football. How pissed are
Yeah.
you that EA bought them out, or at least shut
Oh
them
yeah,
out from at least producing any like quality games that have real likeness to players? And because 2K was doing a great job, and Madden comparatively sucks. Sorry for
yeah.
Madden fans out there.
No,
Old
it
Madden's
it,
good.
it
New Madden
it
sucks.
does. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. So if you don't mind diverging a little bit into the 2K stuff, so I think the first time I played it was on the Dreamcast, and the movement of the players is so different to me than Madden, where I think like to encapsulate it, Madden, it feels like you're driving a car, like you're kind of steering stuff. The animations just sort of like happen, and where 2K was just way different in the way you felt like you could really move the players, you could bounce off tackles a lot. So it was just felt a lot more organic. And then it moved on to the Xbox with Xbox Live. Got really into that game. I even had quick little side story on that. We had this really popular league that we created a website for, got some of the best players in the league. And at the time, I mean, I was ranked, I don't remember anymore, but I was like ranked up there, like top 15, top 10 in the world probably.
Holy cow!
And then we had this league for a few seasons, and about halfway through, one of the guys that was in the league just whatever, we were probably using AOL Messenger at the time. He tells me that he's a producer of the game itself. I didn't believe him. And it turns out it was true. And so my cousin and I, at some point, he lived out of state. I went out to visit him. The studio was outside of San Francisco. So he invited us to come meet him. We had lunch with him, saw his place. And then, I don't know, a couple months later, he actually offered me a job, like promoting their leagues, their online leagues, because they're moving into they were going to host on 2K5 online leagues for the first time. So this is coming off of 2K4. And at the time I was like in between finishing my college degree, and I had already set up what I was going to do. So I turned him down. And I always think back on that, like, man, my life could have gone a totally different direction, but maybe it wouldn't have gone anywhere, because not long after that, Madden bought out the rights. And then this guy, he actually went over to EA Studios for a time. I'm not sure I've lost touch with him now, but he moved over there. And then, I mean, that's that. And ever since then, whenever I picked up Madden, it still has that same feel to me that pushed me to 2K in the beginning. So I've just I would love to play football. I love the strategy. It was just so much fun to I'd spend so much time creating different defenses and just scheming offensive stuff. So way different than NHL 94 and what you can do that way. But yeah, I mean, it's just never come back. So it really killed a whole community, honestly.
Yeah, and let's go back to 94, because I think people want to hear more about that, and especially considering all your involvement and your accolades in the past while. You've been the runner-up in one of the King of 94 tournaments. Is that correct?
That was last year, the last tournament.
And how many of those tournaments have you partaken?
So let's see. I think just the last 2 years, they I don't remember what year they started the King 94. I was just a little bit out of the scene at that time, got busy with other things. And so the last 2 years I've attended, and those have been the ones that have happened since I've kind of come back into online play.
Huh. And so what happened last year when you finished second? I mean, I'm curious to hear your story of Who beat you and how did that happen?
Okay. What did happen? So trying to remember. So I think I came out of the bracket. So we have group play first. They had this year a kind of elite group. I think I was on the cusp of getting into that elite group, and that group they all had seeds in the final bracket reserved to them. So that was just about seeding. So I was in the bigger group. I think I lost one game in that group to Mr. T, made the bracket, and then man, I have to go back to remember who. I think I played Chaos first in the bracket. Then there was a big upset. Someone beat Raph. I can't remember who it was right now. So otherwise, I would have played him, which is huge because he's beaten me in live tournaments and probably would have done that again. So then I think that might have been SPAC. So then I played SPAC next. Had a great series, and I might be forgetting someone in there. Played AJ. He then I can't remember if we just played one game, two games, whatever, but he knocked me into the losers bracket, and then I was basically had to beat Kaze to get back to the winners final, which was if I don't know, I've watched that game a couple times on YouTube because it's such an unbelievable game how that happened. He easily could have won. It was just like this crazy sequence of events. Then did beat him in overtime and then made it back to face AJ and at least gave him his first loss of the tournament. But he I think he beat me. He was up a game from being in the winners bracket, and then he closed it out with 2 wins to my 1.
So Kaze, that's how you pronounced his name?
I could be corrected on that one. That's what I'm going with.
So is that one of your most thrilling wins?
That was,
like
yeah.
the way you're talking about it, you're talking so fondly of it.
Well, so it was, I told EA after EA was at the tournament, he's a great guy. If you've talked to him before, he's just got so much enthusiasm. And I was telling him is like, it was just, I mean, it was really, I was down 3 goals to 1 with, I don't know, a couple minutes to go. Somehow got back in it I scored a lot of just unique goals too. I had a 5-hole goal. I had a fake shot goal. And then the final goal. And then I scored on myself to put him up a goal. So I had tied it up with like a minute left, instantly scored on myself with like a series of like kind of like ricochets. Your own guy just like has momentum. Your AI just takes in your own net. So it was like the ups and downs of that series were incredible. And then there was a really neat save in there too, on a penalty shot as well. So just the different plays that happened, and he's a great player, and honestly, he totally had me that game, and so I felt pretty fortunate to come out of that one.
Yeah, take it. It's a win. There must have been a lot of times you've lost. You thought you should have won, but the NHL gods were not on your side. So this time they were shining on you that day. So yeah, take it.
Yeah, exactly. It was just cool. I think what also made it cool was just having that happen live in person with all the people there watching, because it was like the game to go to the finals. So everyone was into that game, and just I thought that was like a cool moment to have it come out in your favor and to just get to kind of share that excitement with all the people there in person.
Yeah. Are you going to participate in the one this year? We're about 2 months away from we're recording right now. So
yeah, that's the plan. I've got the weekend reserved the days around the weekend reserved at work. So I just need to book the trip right now, book the travel.
And which one are you going to be participating in? Is it going to be both the SNES and the Genesis, or just one?
I hadn't thought about that, but I probably should give it a go at both this year, because why not? I'm already up there, but for sure Genesis, for sure.
How confident are you on the Genesis side that you'll actually have a good showing?
I'm confident, but there's a lot of good players.
Mm-hmm.
The year before I ran into it was King Raph. So I was in the bracket 2 years ago, played King Raph, best of 3. He beat me 2 games to 1. So, which is not, that's almost to be expected, because he's basically like top top 1 or top 2 players. And then I got a bad draw in the losers bracket, and so the first person I had to play was KG Man in a elimination game, and so he's won past tournaments. So it was just by circumstance, I pretty much got knocked out by 2 champions, and if that happens again, I won't really. I'll be disappointed, but it's what can you do?
And in this SNES side, if you do throw your hat in the ring, you have any idea if you're going to do it halfway decent? Is like, what's your expectations?
I would hope that I would at least make the bracket, but I don't really have any delusions of grandeur that I'll go all the way or anything in that. It's just such a different game, and it's been so long since I've been into like the mechanics and the feel of it. It's yeah. I mean, people could probably explain that who play it more often better than I could, who play both games better. But yeah, do you play that one at all? The SNES version?
I'm trying a lot. I mean, every time I go, I'm available. I go on Discord and I throw my name out there for an exhibition game. And even say Genesis or SNES, nobody's bitten on the SNES. So it's always been a Genesis, and it's too bad because I want to get better at SNES, but nobody's there to help facilitate.
Okay. Yeah, I would think that would change maybe at some point, because I believe like it is pretty popular in Canada. Like I think the majority of the players might be from Canada that play really competitively in that. So yeah. So maybe both of us need to give that a shot.
And I'm just outside Toronto, so I'm Canadian, and I never played the SNES 94 until very recently. I'll say this year. It's the first time I played. Okay. I've seen a 93 an SNES, and it left a sour taste in my mouth. But the 94 I've never played until this year. So it's a very different game. So I'm coming from scratch. Like it's like learning to rollerblade for me, but at least I have some backup that I could go on. At least I played the Genesis version, so I understand the mechanics, or some of the mechanics. Just it's different though. I just want somebody to play me. That's all.
No, it's like it has different features too. Like there's some cool things you can do. Like you can aim one-timers.
The one-timers.
Yeah. You can, with the left and right triggers, pick your defenseman.
Auto goalie. Like you could pick the goalie.
Yeah, and the slap shots are different. They're not as powerful in SNES. I think the main thing for me is like the way that their game runs on SNES at like 30 frames a second, where Genesis is 60 frames a second. And that gives it, to me, a lot more smoothness and feel and subtlety to the Genesis, which is hard for me to go back and forth between at this point.
Can you notice that?
I do think SNES is a good game.
And you're able to see that just with the naked eye. You could see the smoothness of a 60 frame versus 30.
I think you can see it a little bit, but it's honestly more of a feel thing. Like I don't know if you've ever heard, like if you ever get into stuff about how fast different controllers react, and like what the human brain can detect. You'll see things like that. Well, the human eye can only detect 100 milliseconds, and so like you want it's all in your head if it's just. But so I think that's probably true. But I think that you can feel things, and I think and that's what I mean. Like the feel is different between the two based on that frame rate, even though you might not be able to see it as significantly as the difference in feel.
And just curious, you ever play, say, the PC version or the Sega CD?
I probably played that like once or twice, honestly, but I've heard that the CD version has a little more, like it stutters a little more than the Genesis, maybe because they're loading these big audio clips or the way CD works or something. So I would be interested in it otherwise, because it seems like, why wouldn't you want to play an upgraded version, in the Sega CD? But I've heard it doesn't actually turn out that way. And then I believe I played the PC version. I think I'm interested in it because I think there's a season mode on that, and it is supposed to be very similar to like the Genesis feel.
And there's 4 lines, I believe, that you could roll out rather than 3. So there's a lot more features included in that. And people that played it, they swear by it more than the console. And I can understand. You have, when the programmers made it, you had more. There's more under the hood, under a computer than say the console. Because those consoles, like, let's be honest, the Genesis was made in the late 80s.
Oh yeah.
And SNES came out just a little bit after that. So it's.
I mean, it's amazing. No, it's an amazing feat what they are able to cram in a console. In the cart or whatever, like with that limited of space, all the things they're able to do is pretty crazy.
You ever play 95? And if so, what were your thoughts on it?
I did, yeah, not very often. I mean, it's kind of like it, yeah, you've probably heard other people talk about this, but it's just they changed so much about the feel. I think that is the, kind of going back to like that 2K football versus Madden sort of feel. It's just like, it's just so different and not in a good way to me. So I haven't really given it a whole lot of shot. It's almost like the animations are kind of like not as fluid or not as there's not as much depth to it somehow. I think it's a faster game, but I
Mhm.
know it's popular with people, so I'm not disparaging it. It's just not my taste.
That's fair. Curious, are you better live or in person? Sorry, live or online?
Live or online. It's a good one. Probably live. I think a little bit. Online can be unpredictable because it's a little, it's dependent on the connection between the two people, and there's a little bit of irregularity there. And sometimes it's like you feel like you have a perfect connection, you can do anything. Other times not so much. So I don't think it's a huge difference. I think I've like won a classic online league. I've made it pretty far in other online leagues. Generally, I'm in the playoffs every year, so I think it's pretty close to my ability online, or excuse me, in person. But like in person, I think the one thing I would say about going back and forth between the two is like I always notice. To me, it always takes me like about a day to warm up to the. Just it feels a little different to me on the console. I can feel it, and it once you adjust to like the slight difference in timings, then it's usually pretty natural. It comes back to you. But yeah, I noticed a little bit of difference. So I think for people that are going to go to a tournament, it makes sense to try to get some X's in just to warm up to the feel again.
Yeah, it's slightly different. And you've been in this community for a long time because I took a peek in when was your first post or when you just signed up in the forum. It's
Mm-hmm.
2005, so it's 19 years right now. So
Yeah.
you're pushing 20 years in this community. Now, in terms of when people are playing online, you've seen the evolution in terms of the connection and the ping slowly getting better. I mean, can you
Mm-hmm.
talk about how it was like in the earlier days when you first joined a community? How playing online, like, was it feasible? Was it just laggy? Like, I'm curious, what was it like back in those days?
I think it was playable, I would say. So we used a different emulator called Gens, and
Yeah.
right at about that time, there's a way to connect directly to someone versus going through a server. So if you went through a server, it was always usually a little more delayed or lag feeling, and so I think it wasn't too bad, but there were points where it's like the gameplay would stop, or certain games where it was just unbearably like everything feels delayed. It's like you can't even do the moves you're used to. And so it was very hard to practice like offline and figure out how you want to score because it just felt like so much more delayed online. I think over time, eventually that kind of got to me, which I think kind of pushed me a little bit out of online back then because it was just kind of fed up um, with it not feeling consistent or like as responsive. And I think that's been the improvement with RetroArch. I know there's some hiccups and stuff sometimes, and I've definitely dealt with that. And we're kind of on the upgraded version. Kind of sorting out different troubleshooting with people, which is I think once we get most people sorted out, I think it'll be better than the past version. But I would say anyway, the one big difference to me about RetroArch that does keep me in it is it just even if you get a little bit of herky jerkiness on the other player, it always feels very responsive to me, and console like. And I think that was the hard part about the online. The old online worked in a way that the only way to get people to be able to play each other was just to delay the response from your button press until you had the other player's button press from the other side of the country, and then you could put them together and move the game forward. And so to do that, you that's how it worked back then. They just built in a few frames of delay to allow that to happen, and it just kind of it really over time graded on me basically. But
Yeah.
I would say it was playable. I mean, the results are all solid from back then. People who were good back then have skills and all that stuff. But just I think it's better now.
But remember, that was at a time too where still people not sure how many, but dial-up was still kind of a thing. Broadband internet was kind
Yeah,
of, I'll say, its infancy. So I'm assuming all that time you've been using broadband internet. You haven't been using dial-up, or
I believe so. Yeah, I think I've always had cable internet. Since I don't know what everyone else was on. That's a good point actually. But some of the funny things about what I think of now from back then is like, I remember like just doing like XCs with like AJ when he was like, I don't really remember being on the scene too much before him, but I remember it was like he was new and we were XCing and stuff, and just really good, but even that much better now. Or like guys like Ice Storm, some of the old school, like sort of being around at like XC with him for his first few times, and so it's kind of cool to think back at some of those early games with like basically people who are like legends now.
don't you kind of wish you had recorded those and you would have
Yeah,
archived
totally.
somewhere? You go,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it
it's
would
too
have been
bad.
cool. I don't know if I knew how to. I guess I didn't know how to do that back then. We probably could have.
Well, you just have a video camera pointed at the screen, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's what you.
totally.
I'm
Yeah.
curious. Are you a CRT guy, or do you just swear by that
Yeah,
or
now,
not?
yeah, now I am. I'm trying to. So yeah, I think when I came back, I don't know. It's probably been 4 years or so now. I went to a Minneapolis tournament that happened to be around. I saw it. I was like, okay, I want to go back and play in that. And AJ eliminated me at that tournament. It seems like for whatever reason, I always go to tournaments to get eliminated by AJ. But so he eliminated me, but that kind of got my that kind of got me back into it, and then got on RetroArch. And so getting on RetroArch and trying to figure out like how things worked, and anyway, that just led to me getting more interested in like controllers and CRTs and stuff. So I have picked up like 3 CRTs now, and um, right now I'm playing on a monitor mostly, but I have set that all up so I can play RetroArch on the CRT, which it's not too hard. It's just a bunch of steps to follow, and a lot of following instructions to get it right. So yeah. So and I on the topic of CRTs, like I'm definitely a huge fan of using them at tournaments, because I do think that you lose a little something on the monitors. Um, Again, like I'm pretty sensitive. I don't think everyone's like this. I'm pretty sensitive to responsiveness. Like I feel like I can feel a difference, and so I do like the idea of just sticking with the CRTs as long as we're able to for live tournaments.
I think there's going to be a possibility to use it for some time. Does the Smoz have a huge collection of them? He's been hoarding them for some
Yeah,
time.
yeah, man. I think I was with him and some other people after the last tournament, and there was definitely a whole operation to load up the CRTs into his vehicle. So yeah, definitely huge thanks to him for doing that for everyone.
Now, RetroArch 1.17 is now in vogue. That's the one that we're recommended to use, and you've been involved with testing of that. Am I correct?
Yeah, I have been. I kind of had a little hiatus in the last couple of months, like as we were getting sort of that all set up. Chaos is really kind of the main, I would say,
Mhm.
the keeper of all things like online play, website, and so on. So I had done some testing on the previous 1.110, and then on the new one, sort of just like some offline testing with a couple programs to like figure out what I thought was going on under the hood with some of the settings, and made some recommendations to Chaos. I didn't decide to write up a whole thing because I figured most people wouldn't read it. It's just kind of all this technical babble. So shared that with Chaos. Kind of worked with him on some of the questions around updating settings, and then really like then there was kind of like a testing beta phase. We just wanted people to download it and test a little bit. And I think right now, as we're rolling into it, I try to help out as much as I can with some troubleshooting. I don't know that you can solve everything, but sometimes it's something very simple. And so I think between myself, Chaos, and there's some other people, like I think Blizzard is pretty helpful with people, and Dan as well. I think we'll be able to get most people sorted out.
Gotta give you all um, just an applause for what you guys are doing, because it's a lot of work, a lot of testing, a lot of figuring out, and a lot of questions people are asking. And in fact, I'm not sure if you know, but I was asking some questions to do with my setup, and out of the blue, you just DM me and you suggested a setting for me to engage on my RetroArch, and that was well, actually, my computer, to set it to 60 hertz rather than being 144 hertz, and yeah, I've been at 60 hertz ever since. So like you just like out of the blue just sent me a DM, which is really cool. So,
well, that's what I mean. So like some of the people that are troubleshooting, you know, not to totally spill the beans, but you know, KS was I was messaging KS, and we were talking about different things like that, and he said, oh, why don't you message Len? I think he had, you know, something about whatever the setting was or the screen refresh rate. So I also have a 144 on my laptop. So the only reason I know much is because I love the game enough and the RetroArch, and I just get into testing out different things here. So it's just really been the process of just seeing what happens on my end. But of course, I don't have your computer or other people's computers, so I'm kind of taking my best guess at
yeah,
stuff that would be helpful.
There's a lot of variables here, and you're just taking the best, like as you say, the best guess to figure out what works best. But and from what I understand, you're doing a lot of testing with the video drivers with 1.17. Is that correct?
I was, yeah. So like I'm trying to simplify this, so because I didn't want to do a whole on write up. KS kind of understands it, but basically you there's a couple programs you kind of monitor, like I'll start here. So like, you know, the game runs at 60 frames a second. And so you can monitor each frame as it gets sent from like the program all the way to being displayed on your monitor, like step by step. And so I was just running kind of on our 1.10 settings and changing up the video driver, changing up I have a monitor, I have a laptop screen, window, full screen, and just kind of seeing what was happening, what the differences were. And then I put all that on a spreadsheet and could kind of understand some patterns and what I thought was happening. Is basically, I think in net play, you really want it has to be able to like synchronize the frame that you're sending and the frame the opponent's sending. And when that kind of gets herky jerky or it just makes it harder for net play. And I think that's my theory, is that kind of leads to some more of that jumpiness. And so I was kind of looking at what settings can we do that seem to provide the most consistent results across a laptop screen, windowed full screen, the different drivers. So I was just kind of running through different tests. I had some time on my hands, honestly, so I was happy to just like spend an hour or two in the evening just running through stuff like that.
What's the recommended driver that you suggest people use? Now, of course, you know, your mileage may vary, but I'm curious what you would suggest.
Well, I don't think there's so right now we're default on this D3D11. I think the D3D12 is just fine. I think the GL is just fine. It's more about some of the settings that we could use. I try not to make it too complicated. Basically, there's kind of like some adjustments within those drivers that apply to all the drivers, and depending on what you pick, you'll get some different results as that frame goes from the program all the way to the screen. And so like, I think what we're on right now, like we could try a different driver. I think they'll all be pretty similar as far as the drivers, but it's yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm resisting the urge to get super in the weeds here.
I have no problems if you want to go into the weeds.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll try to make it simple. So it's like
no, and be as technical as you want. I don't care. People want to hear this probably. Okay. If they don't, screw them.
Okay, so so the old RetroArch, we were running a setting that basically locked in the frame rate or the FPS that you see to the exact speed of the console. That same exact speed that Genesis runs at. That really sounds good in theory. But the way RetroArch is made to run by default doesn't do that. It actually looks at the speed of your monitor. So like if you have a 60 hertz monitor, and it matches the speed of everything to that. And it does that because it wants to keep the audio and video in perfect synchronization. So instead of having something that runs, because the Genesis console runs a slightly weird like speed. It's like a little slower than that. So instead of doing that, it just bumps everything up just slightly to what your monitor is, which most people are like right around 60. So it's very close. so and so what I was looking at was on the old system where we were locked in the frame rate, it looked like the frames as they're being delivered from the program all the way to the monitor, it was like, it wasn't steady. It was like this, sometimes they'd be delivered slow and fast. So it was like going like this constantly. And then when I just changed that setting and kind of set it up how RetroArch is kind of just default setup, everything got super smooth. And then you could kind of change those little sub settings I was talking about to give it a little more like buffer, so it would take longer, but it would all be smooth. And so I was kind of theorizing that like the setting that locks in the speed, it might be affecting us in net play. And so I wanted to test out, okay, what if we just set this all up how kind of RetroArch comes out of the box? Let's try that and see if that steadier pace from a frame, kind of basically the time that the frame takes to get all the way from the program to your screen. If that's steady and everyone's steady, maybe we'll get a better result. I personally was getting a lot of like jitter on the old system. I know not everyone was getting that. There could be some explanations around that. I think that would be a little too boring, but it was just, to me, I wasn't having a good time on 1.10 because and that's what I thought was probably some of the cause of it. But this under the new setting, it does really matter that you kind of have things. It should be fine out of the box, but there's a couple things on the computer side that we're trying to troubleshoot for different people that aren't too complicated that should hopefully kind of fix up any things that are making the default RetroArch setup that we have now not run smoothly.
So, do you think that then with the settings we have that you guys all have suggested for everybody and the new 1.17, do you think that things are now better compared to 1.10?
Well, I'm still getting messages from people that are having problems, so I don't, I hope that's the case. It's been great for me so far. I've had way fewer problems with jitter where it's like the player you're playing is kind of just like bouncing around the screen, that kind of thing. I know some people are still seeing that, so I'm just trying to figure out as I talk to people that are experiencing that, like what that could be. And it might be simple things like on Windows, you want to make sure that you're running in performance mode, because at default you pick up a laptop, it's going to be in like eco mode or balance mode to like save on the battery and stuff like that. So there's little tweaks like that I think have been improving things. Like today I was talking to someone and I said, send me the pictures of they have a graphics card. Send me the picture of your graphics card settings. So this is outside of anything RetroArch. And I was looking at my notice, oh, that one setting that's on right there, that could affect how these frames are coming through to your monitor, and that could lead to some difficulty. So hey, like, I've played with that setting before, so I kind of know what it does. So my suggestion was like, just turn that off, because I know it's not going to hurt. It's not going to help you. Even if it's on, I think it could hurt you. And they got back to me and said, yeah, this is actually better now. So I think there's just some of that where, we all have different computers, different graphics cards. There's even more variables than just RetroArch.
Yeah, and we all have to take into consideration the console, like I mentioned the earlier part of the show, was released in the late 80s. So it was developed, I guess, in the late 80s, maybe in the mid 80s at that. And the game NHL 94 came out in 1993. So we're talking a game that is 21 years old on a console that's 25 years old or more. And we're playing it online. So there's going to be some hiccups along the way. Nothing's going to be absolutely perfect. And given what I see right now, I experience the odd problem here and there, but it's less and less, it seems, these days. I mean, for me, it seems like 1.17 is a step in the right direction from 1.10. Are you able, do you have the knowledge, and could you talk confidently, what's the difference between 1.17 and 1.10? Or is that
a little bit? Yeah. Like, okay. So each time they post a new RetroArch, they do have this thing on their website. It's like called a change log. So you can just go through, and it's, most of it doesn't affect us at all. It's just adding little things that we don't even use, and new languages, for example, just things that don't matter. So
I want to put it in a Hungarian version or something. I want to have something, right? Or I want it on North Korean or something. I want to
we're gonna have to upgrade again, so you'll have to ask Chaos if he'll allow us to upgrade with that. But yeah, no. So I guess I can't. I think they've made some improvements to the net play code, things like that. But I'm not aware of a big change. Just I know they've done a little bit of work on net play. They're always kind of like just finding little bugs in RetroArch itself and improving those. So I'm sure there's just some basic stuff like that that's improved. But like generally, the one thing that just popped in my head is, so they did fix the two drivers. I think it was both D3D 11 and 12, because on 1.10 they had some issues with I don't know how to describe it well. Basically, how the frames are presented or delivered. That there were some bugs in that, and I also think that kind of affected some things too on 110. So those are fixed now. So that's why we're on the 11 driver, because it's been fixed. So that is actually a big change.
Now, for somebody like me, I'm, I guess, the redheaded stepchild when it comes to this, because I don't run Windows, I don't run Mac OS, I run the other one, I run Linux, right? So it's very different, I guess, in some regard, and very similar in other regards. But in terms of the video driver, Vulkan is the one that I use. Could you talk about, is that at all? Like, because it seems to be the best of the one I can pick.
It's supposed to be good. I mean, it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be on par with the other driver you hear about is GL, or GL Core is the new name for it, and you hear about something called Hard Sync and and so Hard Sync is like basically it should be telling your graphics card basically like, hey, don't buffer a bunch of frames behind that aren't displayed yet, like limit, because because basically the graphics card might just run as fast as it wants, and they're super fast or running this old program, so it could just like spin up a bunch of frames before you're even ready to interact with it or present it or whatever. And when you buffer a bunch of stuff, like sort of like the inputs, your controller inputs kind of get stale and old, and so then when it finally displays, it just kind of creates the situation where there's going to be some like delay or lag feeling. So what HardSync is doing is telling the driver or your graphics card, hey, don't buffer all these extra frames. Like I just want it like run kind of when I need it. And then you get more responsiveness. And so anyway, back to Vulkan, like Vulkan kind of has that supposedly built into it, and it's a more modern driver. So it is supposed to be really good. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Vulkan. I don't think there's a whole lot of differences between the two, but like I think it's fine if people start if we eventually gravitate toward one or the other. Like I've used this GL driver on my setup here, and I get, so this goes into help channel stuff, but like we set it up now where you can hit a key and you get these technical stats that you don't need to really know what they mean or anything, but
is that T
for us when we're troubleshooting. And so anyways, for that, I get my best stats personally, but they're all good on all the drivers, but I get my very best stats on the GL driver for whatever reason. So it might just come down to different hardware, but I don't think they're that significant of differences, honestly.
And when you hit that letter T and it brings up all those stats in the left-hand side, top left-hand side, there's one particular stat that's showing up, and deviation or something like that, or is this ringing a bell?
Yeah, it's called frame deviation. And so basically what it's doing, it's like it's measuring, so you see your frame rate, your FPS. Let's say that's just 60. And once in a while you see it kind of goes like 60.1, maybe it goes 59.9. So there's this, and so it's measuring like how on the mark the frame is delivered to when it's supposed to be delivered each and every time. And so the lower that percentage is, the more just like steady, like dialed in, it's just hitting the exact mark it wants every single time. And so when that percentage goes high, and again, this is stuff I'm theorizing a little bit, but when that gets high, to me, that means like you're probably going to have some problems in net play, because in net play, it's even like a higher bar. It's like very important that everything is very like steady and synchronized, like sort of like when you're internet, if you're on Wi-Fi, you're kind of going up and down a little bit, same kind of principle. So I look at that percentage, and I like people to run it offline, because if it looks high offline, that tells me, okay, that's actually kind of nice to see, because now, okay, there's something on the computer that we can try tweaking to see if we can make that better. So it's not just, net play or what something happening there. It's likely that we need to turn on a setting or turn off a setting somewhere to get that more steady. So like when I run that on my setup, like offline, I'm like sub 1%. It's like that steady. It's like I can get like, half a percentage point. And I don't know that everyone gets it, but like generally, like you might see 3%. It's all like pretty low numbers there. And so when I start to see high numbers on that, I think
What is
that
high?
something's going on. What's that?
What is a high number? Like, what would you say? Oh,
Well,
that's
well, this
troublesome.
is just my sense from like playing so many games, and I just leave those stats on when I'm playing. So generally, like on RetroArch 110, I would always see 3.5%, like just about every time. It's like 3.5%, and that was pretty much like you couldn't get lower than that. That was the old settings, and it worked very well. I still got some jitter or whatever, but like, so I look at that, and now I get much lower than that on these new settings. Like I said, like, 0.5%, sometimes below 1. So it's even smoother. So anyway, if I start to see it offline on your computer, I would say if it's starting to go like over 5 or 6%, then it starts to seem like it's kind of stuttering a little bit, even though you might not be able to feel it or see it very much. But I look at that and I think it probably can be steadier. I know it can be on my computers, and like I don't have like kind of some kind of supercomputer or anything, so it's just a way of telling. I don't know exactly what number is too much or anything, but it's just more of me seeing those numbers for so long, and so I would say, yeah, like offline, if you're like over 5 or 6, maybe something's up. Online, usually it's always going to be higher online. So my like 1%, if I'm hosting, that might be 6% when I'm hosting, or 7% or something. When it starts to get like 9 or 10, then I'm like, okay, something's up here
There's a
with
difference between host.
whatever's happening, and that might mean honestly that because the net play is like resyncing your connection
Yeah.
with each other, and so if that percentage starts going higher, it tells me, okay, it's having to do more syncing, and that's why the timing isn't quite right, because it's just having to sync you up a lot more. So it's just a way to kind of understand if something's going awry.
That's good. So yeah, press T, take a look at that. I'm going to take a look at that way more in depth now. That's very interesting information. I want to thank you for that. In terms of hosting versus client, is there any difference that people should notice, or like, especially when you're looking at these numbers? I mean, does the client look at it differently than say the host?
I thought, well, on the numbers, like it seems like what I've seen is when you're hosting, your percentage goes a little higher than if I just join someone, I'm going to have a lower percentage. I think that's because the host is doing a little more work of the connection. Maybe it's the one, maybe the host is, I don't know exactly how that works, so I'm kind of speculating, but I think basically the host is doing a little more work. If there's a need to kind of resync the two players, that machine is the one kind of doing it and sort of leading things. So I think it's just doing a little more work. And so the host is generally going to have a little higher percentage. In terms of who's going to have the worst of it, I know the theories are kind of like the host is usually going to get the worst of it. My experience so far in 117, I've hosted a lot. Like I haven't seen any jitter or any teleporting at all, which is strange because I know other people have said, oh, I got a blip there. And I've been the one hosting. Generally, I've seen that kind of at the very beginning of the game for whatever reason, like when you just start out.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I usually just hit reset. Okay, let's start over again. And basically every time so far, it's been totally playable and smooth and hasn't teleported at all for me. So, so I don't know if that still holds true on the new RetroArch. I think that was pretty much the case on the previous one, where generally the host will get the worst of it. I just don't think either on either of them that was always true. I think there could be more possibilities in that.
So when is it going to be a change to a newer version? I know we just switched to 1.17,
Yeah.
but 1.18 is stable, and 1.19 is in the beta version, or whatever you want to call it. It's the alpha, or so.
I
Only
mean,
Switch.
I'm guessing not for a while because it's a lot of work to switch everyone, and
Yeah.
go through all the troubleshooting stuff. So I mean, that would probably be a chaos question. But if he told you not for a long time, 2 years or something like that, I would have no issue with that because I know what all the work it entails, which is when we're still trying to get kind of everyone up to speed on the new one. So probably not for a while. But I suppose if something amazing comes out, and I usually pay attention to it, then that could change things. Like they make some huge
Yeah.
improvement or something we really want to use, then that could be a game changer.
Until then, it's steady Eddie with this one. We'll still stick with 1.17 for some
I
time.
think
For
so.
better or for
Yeah.
worse, I think for the better. Let's
Yeah.
steer this ship back to
Okay.
NHL 94, the game itself, because there's a few questions I want to ask you specific to that. Because there's been a lot of new players joining up lately, and I'm wondering maybe if you could give some tips to some of the new players in that, because you're one of the better players, especially on the Genesis side. Let's be perfectly honest here. You have a lot of skill. So what would you tell them in terms of like what they should do to better their games?
Yeah. Well, like when I got back to online play, let's see. So it's a long learning curve. Number one, keep playing, same kind of thing. Just keep playing, keep practicing. Um, that's just general stuff. I would say like, learn the different techniques you see. I think the game is like it's a combination of like there's technique. It's not that difficult. It's not like Smash or something like that where it's really, really technical. It's a little technical. It's you kind of have to break some of your bad habits. I would say my bad habits from just playing console or with like I would just it was all like run and gun stuff, which does work for some people. It doesn't work for me as well online, so I think I've slowed my pace down a lot. So and like as you learn techniques, like pass shots would be an example of that. I would suggest like I do like practicing them offline just to get the actual technique down.
Oh,
And
you play the
then
computer.
I play the computer a lot. And when I'm just working on something, I mean, that was kind of what I did a lot in 2K. That helped me too. I mean, that was different because you're setting up schemes and plays and stuff. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But I played a lot just for the technique, I think. And but I would say like anytime you're trying to add something to your game, let's say so one I'm kind of rambling here, but like one tip would be
Ramble
EA.
away.
Work on EA specials. Like I think that's a huge thing. Like everyone who wants to get better should start working on those. I'm not that great at them, but I definitely need to use them and try to use them more. And it could be a really good if you're having a hard time scoring and you need to switch some stuff up. Like that's something always at the top of my list. Okay, I need to just like do some more EAs here, try to get some chances going. But anyway, I've noticed like if you're trying to work on something like that and you might practice computer and kind of get the feel of like how to do it and stuff like that, start just getting a feel for it. Like I always found if you're trying to work something new into your game, you're gonna be worse a little bit for a little while. So it's like because you're gonna overuse it, you're gonna not do it like correctly all the time. You're just gonna want to keep doing that move. You're gonna want to keep scoring with that pass shot that So so you're gonna get it worse for a little bit, and then it's like a matter of like integrating it into the rest of your game at a nice balance, I would say. So like I can pass shot, I can EA, I can do some other stuff, but anytime I try to add something new, it's gonna take me back a little bit. So just expect that, and then just another thing is like that it's easy to do as a newer player is just try to look for your move. Like I used to do that a lot. Like, okay, I can do this one cool floater goal, like a forehand floater goal.
Yeah.
So like anytime I'm on the ice, I'm trying to like look for that opportunity. And I don't think it's like you have to react to the opportunity and just sort of instinctively take what's there. So the EA is there, I'm gonna go for that. Like you don't necessarily look for your move, I would say. You just have to play enough where you have that in your arsenal, and when it's there, it's there. And I think another thing is I haven't talked about defense, but that's huge. But anyway, on the offensive side, it's really I think the pace that you play with and the passes you make, and knowing when to control your speed, like not charging headlong the goal. But it's even more than that. It's like the subtle changes you can like you can kind of take small bursts at a player and set up, whether it's an AI or whether it's a human, like you're always setting them up for something else, and you're saving a little speed. So it's like changing your speed, changing your pace, changing where you're passing it, like not being predictable. So like Plavex is an example. Like when he's come back to the online scene recently, like when I play him, it's like I instantly notice like this dude has like amazing control of the pace of his players. When he gets the puck, he's so elusive because he's using these like short, at least what I was, he's using these short little speed bursts and stopping and just changing the pace up enough where it makes it really hard to like time him up and hit him. And so I think developing those like that subtleties to your game as a new player, it'll come with time, but just sort of thinking in those terms and like looking for the moments where you're doing that and what worked. And then it's just this, like, it's, to me, it's like, I've still like 2K football is like, you can plan so much ahead and you can plan all these strategies. You can plan the plays you want to use. You can practice plays like NHL 94 is still as interesting to me that like, I don't always know what I'm doing with the puck or why I'm doing something. Like it's so much reaction in the moment. And so sometimes when people talk strategies or switching things up, like I still don't even know what they mean because it's just such a reaction game. So anyway, that's just sort of long-winded. Like there's a lot of different things, makes the game really fun. And yeah, but just sort of understanding, the pace that you're playing at and not going too fast, not charging into action and setting people up and then making the extra pass. I think all of those things like are just kind of there at all times that will help people improve to then be in positions to use the technique that they know how to score with.
And if you're on Genesis, understand the weight bug. That is,
and the weight bug, yeah, there's huge. So many things.
Yeah, that is huge. Because you're wondering why the heck isn't Messier knocking people over because he should be, because Moose was
totally.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense. I guess then, could you, like, of the attributes the players have, can you identify which are the most important and then go down to the least important attribute, that at least what you believe them to be?
I think I mean weight is like huge. I don't necessarily have a ranking, but let's just say like weight, stick handling is really important. I mean, I'd almost put agility over speed, really. If you could take a player like Bondra with higher speed than agility, he doesn't have elite, stick handling or anything else. He's okay on that, but I would much prefer a guy that has more agility and more stick handling than a guy that just has like a 6 speed. So I would put those, I guess, a little bit above speed. I think it's important to know that, like, as you play more, you know the weights of the players. So I basically, through the draft league, I kind of understand generally what range a weight a guy is, and that's gonna like affect. Can you skate into this guy? Are you gonna bounce off him? Do you have to CB check him? But yeah, so anyway, the reason I say stick handle is I think I had a team that I drafted in the Chaos Draft League where I had like a guy who was like a accurate shooter. I think it was like Mike Ritchie, I believe. So he was going to be one of my wings. I was excited about him. And then in the end, I couldn't really play him because of his 3 stick just annoyed me to no end because it made him lose the puck more. Like I couldn't carry with him very well. He, dropped passes. It just kind of messed everything up. And so I ended up playing like Pat Falloon over him that has like a 4 stick and similar ratings, but overall I thought of as the worst player. So stick handling is right up there. I think, definitely don't overlook that one.
So we're up against an hour, so I think it's a good time to transition to the next segment of the show, some rapid fire questions.
Okay, all right,
let's do this. So what do you prefer, 6-button or 3-button controller?
Oh man, 6-button I do prefer, but I really want to get good with 3-button.
What's better, 2K NFL or NHL 94?
Oh man, that is tough.
There's no wrong answer.
I'm still sticking with. I guess I have to stick with 2K football. That was kind of my first love.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a great show. And no,
Yeah. All right. I'll see myself out.
favorite league to play in?
Chaos Draft League.
Jeremy Roenick, is he the best or somebody else the best in the Genesis version?
He's the best.
What do you prefer, 2v2 or the regular 5 plus a goalie versus 5 plus a goalie?
5. I mean, yeah, 5v5 is where it's at, but love 2v2 too.
Do you have a preferred partner?
Corbett is actually we did a couple years ago. We did a 2v2 tournament up there and got within a goal of winning it all.
And who would be the two that you would hate to play against
in 2v2?
Yeah,
Raph and whoever's Raph's partner, man. Raph is insane at that game. So probably, I mean, if you put him with AJ, that would be hell. So we'll say those two.
In the Genesis version of 94, do the Washington Capitals suck?
They do, yeah, they do.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get better with them. I have moments where I like them again, but yeah.
They just suck.
Yeah.
they plain suck. Yeah. All right, what's better, 94? Sorry, NHL 95 or NHL PA 93?
PA 93.
Winnipeg or Dallas? Who are you picking?
Winnipeg.
Cheapest move in NHL 94?
The cheapest move, that would be running out the freaking clock. Running out the clock, not when you have it and you're just running out the last 9-8 seconds and you're moving the puck up, but just like literally, you know, like in your zone type, just running out the clock. Because, and sorry, this is long-winded, but you know, it's like this is like a 5-minute periods.
Yeah.
And the clock goes faster than a real 5 minutes. And we're simulating, you know, I know we're not really simulating a 20-minute period, but it's like, come on, like that's like that 30 seconds that you're killing. That's like, what is that worth in real NHL time? That's like 9 minutes or something. So, yeah.
What's the craziest thing you saw in 94?
The craziest thing, man. I gotta get back to this one because it's just not coming to me right now. But I've seen some crazy stuff.
Ever see somebody rage quit in person?
Not in person. I'm still thinking about your last question because I've just seen so many things. But I think, man, the crazy thing to me is like this isn't like when someone hits the puck. Have you ever seen it where it shoots into outer space? Basically, I don't know if you've seen one of these. Like you can hit it off the net and the thing just takes off like a UFO.
No,
and I've seen it actually fly out and fly back into the ice before.
The gods didn't want it. They sent
it
back.
Yeah. It's just like I can't believe like there's still stuff like that in this game.
All right, I guess the last of these quick questions: what would you rather play, a hot Scott Mellanby or a cold Randy Wood?
If I'm picking and they're going to be on my team,
yeah, you have to pick, and then you have to start them as your center.
I'm picking the hot Scott for sure. Seriously, Randy Wood. I didn't appreciate how horrible he was until I had him like a few months ago on a stock league season where we play with the worst guys intentionally. I had him on a roster and like, I mean, it was unbelievable how bad he was.
See, growing up, we used to always play him because we love this speed.
Yeah,
I was like, throw him in there. LaFontaine.
I thought I would. I was like, oh yeah, I'll play him. Like I remember that I did the same thing, and then now I came back to him and it's like, oh my god, he's like just horrible.
Yes, he is. In the game, he's pretty bad. All right, I guess one last question before we kind of wrap things up. If you could change one thing in the game to make it better, what would you change?
One thing, I mean, I would have loved to have a season mode. That's basically what we're doing online with leagues, I think. But that was always the thing that that was in my mind of like, God, what a great game it would have been back in the day if we had a season mode with stats and everything like that. So, but you know, beyond that, it'd be, you know, KS is looking at stuff. I mean, if we could ever get fighting in, I don't know if we'd like go to town on that in online play because it make things longer, but that would be like a legendary achievement. I mean, that would probably be the most impressive hack ever. so fighting could be added.
We got to set up a GoFundMe for that. So somebody or some people could take time off work, be it months, years, whatever it may be. And we could just funnel money towards those people so they could just work on it, get fighting in the game. And then the way it should have been before it was ripped out, thanks to the NHL and their intervention. Thanks, NHL. You certainly made a great part of the game.
Yeah. Hey, if you wanna start that, you've got my contribution already. I'll definitely throw down on something like that.
Any final words before we sign off?
Oh, hey man, just thanks for having me on. It's fun to talk about the game. Hopefully I didn't bore people too much with the technical RetroArch explanations. And
I think people want to hear about that, to be honest.
Okay.
At least I do.
My inbox will be lit up when I turn on Discord again. But no, that's fine too. So keep those coming. If I don't respond to anyone on troubleshooting, I will eventually respond. But no, I'm looking forward to King again. I think it's awesome that we're still doing all this, that people love playing this game, that we're getting together. Like, I always have a ton of fun meeting people in person. I would encourage anyone who hasn't been to a live tournament just to do it. I brought a buddy who hadn't been to one to the last Minneapolis tournament that came out. We got a hotel room out there. We were, even after XCs with people, we were up like just in our hotel room playing that game, and still like we're kids until 2 a.m. So it's cool to like make the connections. So getting to meet people like yourself on video or in person, like met Mr. Teen Person, great guy. That's the other thing that we haven't really talked about that I think is so cool is just the get-togethers that we have. And I've joked with Corbett that like these controllers, these M30 controllers, I thought they were going out of it's like a 6-button Genesis controller look, and it's really good. You can use this on the console, but I mostly use it on the computer. I thought they were going out of a production, so I bought like as many of them as I could find, because I've joked with Corbett, like I need these, I need to future proof these, so like when I'm 80 and retired in the retirement home, I want to be playing you online. So I think he has a few now, so we'll see if they last that long or we last that long. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. Just hope to keep doing it. Hope people keep playing.
I think there's going to be a lot of interest for at least the foreseeable future. So no worries. And hopefully those things don't go out of production. You could keep buying them for the next bunch of years or decades.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Well, Scribe or Scribe 99, depending on how you want to be called. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure. So with that, keep your controllers plugged in and your stick on the ice.